Kia ora mai tātou. Nau mai ki tō tātou wahanga Ngā Tai O Tokerau. Ko Lahni Wharerau tēnei, tēnei te mihi atu ki a tātou katoa, ko hui hui mai nei raro i te tuanui o tō tātou whare, i Tautoko FM. I tēnei ata e kōrero ana hau ki a toko toru o ngā whanaunga kua tū i roto i tēnei kaupapa hei māngai mō tātou te iwi Māori o te Tai Tokerau i roto i te kaunihera, te kōwhiringa pōti o te kaunihera. I tēnei rā, kai konei ki taku taha taku whanaunga, Clinton Dearlove, tēnā koe. Tēnā koe te kaihana. Anō nei ko Reina, Penney, kai konei, roto i te whare, no manga moka. Tēnei te mihi atu ki a kaurua. Anō hoki āhua haurua mai te kaukaraka, ka hono mai a Tarei Patuwairua. Ko i anō hoki tētahi e tuana i roto i tēnei kaupapa. Nō reira, anau, me huri tātou ki te kōrero atu ki te tokorua nei, me te tatari ki a tai mai hoki a Tarei. Ko koe tuatahi e te kaihana, first off, me hakamarama atu pia ki te iwi, no hea koe wera kōrero katoa. Tēnā koe.
Kia ora, ki āhua whakamāna.
Ai, au, pērā nei.
Ki te ukei tāma ngā mihi nei. So, ko hau ko puhanga tohoro te manga, ko o taua me mangatawa o ku wai, ko ngai tūtiaru, toku hapu, ko ngapu inui tonu tiwa. But he hono nei au ki ngā me hapu o motu kraka nei ngai tūpoto ko tētai o ngā me whānau hare ahu, whānau kaup i tāheke, e ngā whānau witihire i ngai te wake i kaikohe. So koe hoki te me tōku hononga ki hokianga kaikohe ki te rohi nei.
Tēnā koe. Reina, you're a manga moka local.
Yes.
Big commute for you this morning down the hill.
Aye. It was. Just taking my tamariki to Herekino, and then they catch the bus there to Kurakaupapa and Kaitaia.
Oh, yeah. That's what you have to do now because of the gorge being closed.
Aye, yes. Ia rā, kei te haerengi o aku tamariki, but because their reo and their growth and development is so is flourishing there, that's just what we're going to do as a whānau to support their education at Kurakaupapa.
Kia ora. Kia ora. And what are your whānau links, e hoa?
Well, from the mighty tribe of Harrises.
Millions.
And both sides. So, i te taha o tōku mama no Motukaraka, and i te taha o tōku papa kei konei. So the Harrises, you know, from here, or actually Rahiri, and then Motukaraka. The Browns, yeah, kia ora.
Tēnā koe, tēnā koe. Oh, hoki anga tūturu in the house this morning.
Thoroughbred.
Blue bloods. We're just still waiting. We're not sure whether Tarei's on the line or not to introduce him. So we'll just find out pena kei reira ia te whai. Oh, Marika. Tēnā koe e Tarei. Ka huri atu kia koe, kia hakamarama mai kia tātou ko ai koe, wera kōrero katoa. Mōrena.
Ai. Tōtahi mihi ana kia koe ngā whānau o te irirangi o tautoko, tēnā koe Lahni. Me koe hoki Clinton pai te kite a koe, koe hoki te whaia e mohana au he mātua o ngā tamariki waingane te kura o te ranga niwaniwa. Ai, ka tikara, ko Tarei Patuwairua tēnei, e rongo au taku kōrero whā? He pai?
Ai, e rongo ana.
Okay, ka pai. Ko wai au, engari he uri ahau no ngā maunga e wainganui o Timoti nei, a Taranaki Rua Pūhu Tongarira maunga. Ko taku hoa, he wahine wainganui o te iwi o Ngāi Takato e whāngai mai. Ngā whānau o Ngāi Takato, ai poeri Ngāti Kuri Huki, nā reira reira, e noho au ki ta taha o ngā iwi toru te tau, e noho ana ki Kaitaia, nō reira, e mihi ana kia koutou.
Tēnā hoki kia koe e hoa, kia mōhio mai koutou e te whānau, ka hoki mai kia mātau i konei, ka huri atu hoki kia Tarei i te mea kei runga ia i te irirangi i tēnei wā. Nō reira, ko taku pātai tuatahi kia koe e Tarei, e rongo ana hau ka tae te pō hakamutunga mō ngā tono, tahi ka tono e toru te kaumātoru, āhua te kaumātoru ngā tāngata i tono kia tū i roto i tēnei kaupapa. So last week we sat down with Whaihilda Helkiard Harawira and Nais, and Whaihilda said that there was a story on Māori television, and it said that there were only 3 people who had applied for, or had made the tono to stand in the Māori wards. And in the last 24 hours, there was a rush. And that's just fascinating to me, e hoa. So I'm just wondering, can you tell us your story and how you were motivated at that time?
I think what it came down to was my kotero, she's just finished her degree at Waikato. She says, Dad, you need to get in there and make some changes, because I'm involved in other boards around the area, and it was an exciting opportunity to partake in this as part of the Māori ward. Now, I put my name forward, not knowing that Hilda was going to throw her name forward, because we wanted some bite in it from our area, because I work alongside Hone Hilda and and even Penney Tuai and those others up in the north on the border control. And as I thought it was a great opportunity to try and make some changes, but I think the most important thing for me is to try and bring around some understanding around that process, because when we look at our Māori up here, or Māori in general, you know, the things that really resonate with them is what's happening with the rates, you know, look after our roads, what's happening with the signage for our tamariki, what are our sporting facilities, and it's pretty much it's the same kōrero amongst a lot of our whānau. So yeah, my daughter was my biggest sort of shift in my whānau. She says, Dad, you need to get involved. I thought about it for a while, and even my staff at Kura, all of our staff at Tarangi Niwa, where I work, you know, they were excited with the opportunity. Oh, cool, Paps. And then Whaihilda put her name there, says, oh, you know, for me, that's a really awesome thing for her to be in there, involved at a community level, being on board on council. She's got a history of change making throughout the whole of the Māori, throughout the world, actually. So, you know, with her jumping on board, I thought that was pretty awesome. And, you know, you've got someone that's always going to bite at the ankles of anything that's along Pākehā change and processes, and anything that's for the betterment of Māori. Yeah, so that's pretty much me and why I decided to put my name forward, because I just love being and doing what we do for our Māori people. That's all. It's nice and simple, I guess, if you put it in a box.
Tēnei te mihi atu kia koe me tērā hakaro rangatira e hoa. What about you? Like, you know, we're listening to Tarei, and he's talking about Ikura and his daughter, inspiring him, and then you just told us about the journey you have to take all the way over to Here Kino kia te atu o tamariki ki te kura kaupapa, and that certainly takes in some of the concerns he raised too, about our roads, our infrastructure, our tamariki. What changes do you think you want to see in council, and how do you feel like they can be made through the Māori wards kaupapa e hoa?
Well, I'm going to be pono. I think change happens in the community. I think change comes from the ground, and it's the role of those in council to actually listen to what's happening on the ground and to respond to that. There's only certain levels in council which you can do to make effective change, but they're still relevant because there's still harm that can be done and has been done. I mean, I had the privilege of standing behind that lovely auntie from Pangaru, and she just whipped into the council and she said, "You're a sin against Māori," and I was like, you know, how cool, not cool, but you know, you're just being served by a nanny. And that's just that was just a message, quite a clear message as part of the SNA protest from the community and the people that were involved in that protest, including knives, like in the back, you know, there's a whole lot of people in the back, but, you know, to organise that, that protest was very important for Māori. In regards to my hekoi, my tamariki, they have to take precedence at this time. So before, when I was nominated, and one of my good friends from Ngā Tai O Māori, you know, she encouraged me to do it. She goes, you do it. She told me like 3 times, and I'm like, nah, I can't. No, I don't have time. She's like, no, do it. And then so she said, otherwise we're going to have the same people doing it. She encouraged me, and then so I thought, okay, I better just respond to that and then do this mahi. So I put my name forward. But since that's happened, I can see there is a wicked-as response from the Māori community, 17 other people coming forward and stepping up and saying to our Māori communities, we're here, we're okay to lead, and we're gonna fill those roles, and we're gonna try our best in that forum. And then so that's happened, which is cool. There's also what's happened due to climate change, the gorge shutting, which has affected my whānau, and like I said, my whānau, my tamariki have to take priority, and I have to be very careful. Good leadership is about stepping up, but good leadership is also about knowing your capacity and stepping down. So in that context, I'm not saying that I'm like, since the time I was nominated, I might not have the capacity to fulfil that role, and I'm just being pono about that. Kia ora.
Kia ora. E hoa. So, you know, going back to that question about, you know, there was a rush at the end. You were one of the 3 that was already on it. So on Māori television, Clinton Dearlove was up there, and nice. And I don't know the other one, Anoha mai, but yeah. So how long have you been thinking about doing this? And because you're also standing in the mayoralty race, eh? So it's really interesting to have you on our couch today, to get a perspective of, you know, I know you, and there's a strategy there for sure. And so to get a perspective on the mayoralty race and the Māori wards, and why it was important for you to stand.
Ko nui anu kei tāna tēnā me pātai.
E rua e tōnu pia ngā pātai.
Ka hoki au ki te whakaaro tōku mama, he mati ki te ia. E rua tau pia e pahuri haere. E me mai taku mama kia ka haere mai hoki tana tupuna ki aia. E nēni paora witi here, ne me atu e I roti te awairua, tono ki taku mokopuna kia tū mo te mea nei. O he mahi tāti pai hoki te mahi. E ni taua wā, horakau he tū te wards I taua wā. Because I taua wā ka e noho pauri tātou I roto I te kaupapa he kino tonu tātou. And horakau he whai wāhi mō te reo o te Māori. Horakau he whai wāhi mō te reo o te hakaputanga, me te reo o te tiriti. Ko te whakaaro Pāke ana, ke hoki I te mea haka tono kia tātou I ngā tangata whenua. So te whakaaro nei e tōku mama, boy, have a go. E mea ake hoki tō tupuna kiau, have a go. Ko te mea kaupapa rā, kia whakātu atu ki te ao, ka tāmai te wā, kia tini atu te mea āhua nei o tō tātanei kāinga. E ne pono marika, haurua o ngā tangata e noho mai I roto I te Whānau District Council, 51% he Māori. So, e nai nei, whai mana tātou ki te poti, ki te hakatini ana hoki I te mea āhua o tō tātou nei ao, I roto I tēnei o ngā mea wāhine o te Tai Tokerau, o te Whānau District. Ka taia tātou nei nei. And tautoko marika hoki te mea te kōrero taku tuahine, ko te mea wero kia tātou, me pehe ai ki te haka aki ngi atu hoki tō tātou nei whānau ki te poti. Because e nai nei tonu, ka taia rātu ki te hoki te mea hua o ngā mea Māori wards, ki te hoki te mea hua o he mea, he pro-Māori. Pono marika tātou I roto I a tātou, ka tai tātou ki te whakatini hoki tō tātou nei ao kino. Te roki te ao te Pākene, horakau te kino te Pākene, te kino te Whānau District Council, me ngā tāngata, he whakapupuri ei ki te Ei, ki te te kei.
Ko ngā kaupapa haka haere, ne?
So koe hoki te me whakaaro no te iau, he tautoko marika hoki te kōrero tōku māma, kore tai te mea te o, I'm not going to do that. Tautoko marika hoki te me whakaaro aku tupuna, ka haere mai rātu ki te kōrero kia mam, pāna ki te huarahi pai, mō ngā me uri katoa. So koe hoki te me take. Ko tētai honga me take, tekau mā rua tau, e noho tahi ana tātou hoki te me mahi o te tiriti, ngā kremi nei. Ka tā mai te wāno ki hoki te mea e tiru atu ki ngā mea hehe o te kāwana, ke whakahoki o ki ngā mea rawe, hei pere ki te asset schedule. So i roto ia te Tai Tokerau, i manga muka i te wāhina, ko 129,000 acres of whenua, i runga atu hoki te mea asset schedule, ka tai ki te hoki ki ngā mea hapu, ki ngā mea whānau, ki te mahi. Tōku ake hoki te whakaaro nei, mena he whai Māori he mea, he whai kaupapa hoki o te kaunihira, he Māori kaupapa, māma hoki te me te transference of the wealth e whakahoki ki te hapu ki te whānau nei. Ka tai aku tātou hoki te me i roto i te whānau of District Council ki te haka tautoko marika e the transference of wealth e whakahokia ki te whānau, e whakahokia ki te hapu, e whakahokia ki ngā me uri nei o tātou o te whenua. So i roto i au nei, te whakaaro, ka tai tātou hoki te me kia peia. Ki te haka hoha hoki te kāwana, mahi pēnei, mahi pēnei. E mena whai tātou hoki te me nama, we have our numbers, democracy is on our side. And hono tēnā ki co-governance, hono tēnā ki ngā me whakaaro nei o tō tātou nei tupuna o te waka putana, ka tai a tātou nōku hoki kia hangatu hoki i tētahi kaupapa, he pai mo tātou katoa i te Far North.
Tēnā koe hoa, he wānanga, he wānanga. He nui ngā kōrero. Ne, e tika ana hoki kia whai i ngā tohu a tō kuia. Me tō māma no hoki. Mā reira ka timata tō hiko i roto i te humari e. Ne, me te hakapono. He nui ngā hakaro i roto i tērā o au kōrero. It's, you've laid out a formula there of how we can progress in those spaces, ne? I really want to come back and have kōrero about te hakaputanga when we come back and a little bit of a delve into your kōrero there about our transference of land and our assets. Let's go to a break, have a waiata and mahi kapu ti e tātou ma, ka hoki mai anō ki te kōrero ki te whānau nei. Hoki mai anō tātou e te whānau. In our last segment, we heard about the inspiration for our whānau here to stand in the Māori wards, and we heard a little bit about the strategies ahead. I tēnei wā, he hianau te hoki atu anō ki a koe e Tarei, ko taku pātai atu ki a koe. Ko ki te tātou i ngā kōrero whaia Hilda e meana me pōti tuarua mōku, me pōti tuatahi mo tētahi rangatahi, ko ia ka tū hei pau mo te kaupapa. Pēhea o hakaro mō wera mō kōrero, me pēhea koutou te toko whānei e mahitahi ana i roto i ngā kaupapa e haere ake nei.
Yeah, I've had a wee bit of kōrero with Hilda regarding her strategy. I've gone towards something that I find that's more conducive to how we are as Māori. I've really pushed along, if you're going to select one, actually start looking at 4. Look at your option of 4. And I've gone through and I says, Hilda, push the Hilda, because the people that I've pushed forward as a team approach, which some have probably gone, heck, he's crazy, what's he doing? But I've gone along with an Rōpū approach because I know what skill sets they bring to the table. And they have, you know, the team that I've pushed through, or the people that I've pushed, these Hora, these Ngais, these Penney Tuai. And the rationale behind that is, you know, we're fortunate we have 3 or 4 of our Māori people that are putting their names up as the mayor. And I think it's really important that Rōpū and the wards are going to be there to support that person of our Māori candidates that have put their name up as the mayor. So there could be Clinton, there could be Moko, there could be Jackie Brown. And I think each one of those people can do a great job, but it's a lonely place. It's a place that's not a Māori place, but what they need to have in their place is they need to have Māori that are strong in themselves, because obviously the people that have nominated them have faith in them. Themselves have got to have faith in themselves, and you've got to go into that space and create that sort of space that's strong enough for Māori to be able to push forward things. You know, the little things like, I'll use Karaponia as an example, you know, to get a sign up there to slow down the traffic. That took years until one of our babies got bowled over by a bus. You know, those simple things, and that's where we need to be able to get into that space and push back and say, hey, that's not good enough. So that's been the strategy that I've been pushing. Yes, I've said vote number 1. Hilda said vote number 2. But I've also encouraged others to go through there. Fingers crossed, we're going to have one of our Māori candidates go through as a mayor. I think this is an exciting time. You know, we've got 18 candidates that have put their names forward for this campaign. So regardless of whether I get in or regardless of none of us getting in, what that does mean, though, is that the person that does get in the wards truly deserves that position, because there's some names on the candidates and there are some real go-forward people. They're change makers. They're passionate. They love what they're doing. They love being Māori, which is why I've deliberately avoided or put myself forward for any of these other people that are asking, oh, can you come and speak at our thing? And these are run by our Pākehā people. To me, there's no value in it, because none of those Pākehā people are going to vote for us. They're all going to come off our Māori, off the Māori voting. So my kaupapa is pushing for the Māori and accelerating them and trying to encourage them to vote, actually, because that's the hardest thing. And I know that Clinton, I know through his education that he's a calculated man as well, and I'm a maths teacher by trade. So I look at the probabilities. You know, we might have 25,000 of our Māori enrolled on the Māori register. Then we've got to break that down. How many of those Māori people will actually get out and vote? We might have 5,000 if we're lucky, because that's kind of been the sort of statistics. You're looking at the percentages. So I think really for our Māori to get across the table, if our Māori nominations can get 500-600 votes, I think they're in a good place to get across the table. And if they don't, the ones that do get in, you know, they would have earned their position. So, you know, if my job is not to become a Māori ward councillor, it's definitely to make sure and challenge those that are going for their position that they will do a great job. Because I know there's some great names that are put forward. And the other thing that my other strategy is, you know, I see in the world of politicians and especially around campaigning, there's a lot of sledging going on. Oh, my process is all about hakamana each and every person, because I just think it's really awesome that you put your name forward, Fire, as well as yourself, Clinton, and the other 15 other people. That's really awesome. And I think, you know, everyone needs a pat on the back from their own whānau for encouraging them to put their name forward. So, yeah, I know Hilda's is going for number 2. I'm going for number 1 because I still think I'm pretty young. So I can say to Hilda, yes, I'm still rangatahi o Taiohi. You're a wee bit older than me, Hilda. You know, you were doing the damage 30, 40 years ago, so I'll take your first vote. No, but in seriousness, for me, it's a collective approach. And we need to be really strategic on how we can do it. This is a great opportunity. We've done it I've seen it in the past in those political games. We could have been strategic and got a lot of our people across the board. Now we have that opportunity to be strategic and placing people in those positions that we can and we know will do the job. So I've gone for the team approach. So atui tērā, that's my sort of strategy, Fire. So kia ora koutou.
I agree with that strategy, because if we are strategic, we do know that I'm already in the council. I'm already there alongside Mike Te Wake, alongside Sam Napia, alongside a few other really important, and I was the only girl at the time. I was like, what the? But, you know, we're in there in those positions in a committee level. We've got a vote. So there's 5 of us, right? There's 5 of us, Māori representatives. So that's why I've got a Facebook page saying I'm a Māori representative, and that's what I'd like to remain. I can give that time to the people of Ngā Tai O Tokerau to fulfil that role. If we get 4 people into those positions, different people, then we've got 9 people in those council forum putting a vote in. If we have a Māori mayor, then hey, far out. We're coming towards equity in regards to sitting at that table in an equitable, you know, as well, my tūpuna, your fellas tūpuna, considered when they signed Te Tiriti o Waitangi. So this is what I'm thinking about strategic. When I first saw all the names out there, and mihi atu kia koe, mō tō kōrero e ho, when I first saw those names out there, I thought, oh man, we need a hui. We need a hui. We need to think who we're going to put forward. But it's already naturally come up. You can see the ones that naturally come up. And I want to speak about Whaia Hilda. I know that she's amazing in the wider sense. And when I did say I kōrero that, there's some wahine that we're absolutely privileged to have here in the north, and she's most definitely one of them. She's in regards to out there in the public sense and what she's done in that cool photo of her, you know, just sticking it to those engineering students, and that's amazing as a role model, as all that sort of stuff. But when I was on the marae with her, and I was a little bit hesitant because I was at Te Patu, and I was like, oh, I was going to Ricky's tangi, and I said, oh, should I be here? Should I wait? Should I go in? And she just, you know, awhi'd me in. And then I was watching her on the marae, and she's looking at me when she's going to go and sing, so I was like, I'll go follow her, you know. And then she's just pulls a little mattress over for the tamariki, so the tamariki all right. And my feeling about this beautiful ahua is that she's just taking care of people. So that, I'm sorry, I'm just going to say a quick mihi out to Hilda. Another thing, when I think Penney Taui, all I can think about when I think Penney Taui is, obviously, these are rangatira, but like, I think about my dad's words when he always said, Ratana said that the Māori Prime Minister was going to come from the north. And I keep thinking that in my head when I think Penney Taui. And when my husband and I were come up here from Tāmaki, and we come up here, and Penney Taui, like we were pretty broke, we needed some mahi. I wasn't working at that time, and he just made boom, quick decision and supported us. Not only supported us, but just got all these people to help our little small business. And he just did that in an instant. And I think that the role of a rangatira in some parts is to make sure there's kai on the table for their people. And for that, I respect Penney Taui. And I'd just like to mihi out to those 2 people. Kia ora. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Tērā te āhua reka te mahitahi a te taina me te tuakana nera. Me te tāhua hoki o tō tātou tikanga Māori. You know, it's called a race, and if you see other candidate meet and greet things, they like to set up debates and they like you to be a komara and talk about yourself and say horrible things about someone else if you can fit that in. He tikanga anō tērā. Ne pera anō I tō tātou noho tahi, ia wiki. E hare I te mea he noho tahi ki te whawhai. Engari, e mautonu ana tātou ki tō tātou tikanga, ne. And we heard that there's a 51% population of Māori here in the far north. What is the current percentage of representation on that table where decisions are made? And that's the bottom line, really. And it's interesting that we've now been given this opportunity to represent and, as you're saying, be strategic about it. How do you think we're going to be able to affect change in that space, e hoa? I te mea he tikanga no tō tērā whare. So how are we going to be able to maintain that tikanga and our manaakitanga of each other and our whānau in that space?
Kaua haka tini hoki tō tātane āhua. U tonu ki te kaupapa o tō tātane tūpuna, u tonu ki te reo, u tonu ki ngā mea tuku pai hoki tō tātane tūpuna ki a tātou. Ko hoke i te mea wāhi e haere koe, hei kotiti haere, u koe ki a koe. E ni roto i tēnā, i te mea nui te aroha, i me te pono, tika, all these words that have become almost like just sayings that people just roll off the tongue without truly living it. I think that we have to be brash. I think that notoriously Ngāpuhi have never had any ears, and that's our greatest gift. And that when we go into the systems that are designed to change us, that we brazenly go in and change the system. But e tautoko marikau kei te kororo papatare I roti te kaupapa te mea, very lonely spot. And Maumo Taima, if you've got a Māori mayor that doesn't have a board that supports the kaupapa of the mayor. Right? Maumo Taima. Te mea nui o te Ngā Tai O Tokerau is that we've got 4. And all we need is another 2 from the other areas. Then we've got 6. Then we've got our 5 in our group. Then we've got 11. And the power of democracy says that the majority makes the rules. Tera hoki te kaupapa. If we don't do it this round, awhi ngi atu hoki tō tātare whānau mo ngā mea tau e toru ki te haere mai, pōti, haere ki te kura, mea tu ki a tātare tamariki I puke miro, I rangi a niwe, ngā me kura, kaupapa katoa, ngā me kura, mea tu ki rātou pōti. Every 15-year-old in our kura are going to be 18 in 3 years' time. It is our responsibility to feed them and to tell them that their vote will make a difference in their community. And the things that we teach them in our kura kaupapa, the things that we teach them in our kura will add value to what they can do and make changes in their community. It has an application. At the moment, I'm teaching my children crap that doesn't have an application to their true lives.
Tēnā koe hoa. When we come back, we'll talk about that, voting. Let's have a break. We'll come back and remind our whānau how they need to get organised whānau and make sure you vote. Kia ora.
Tērā te karanga I te rangi Te manu tuia Tuia I runga Tuia I raro Tuia I roto Tuia I waho Tuia te here tangata Ka rongo te poka, rongo te o Haunge huie
Welcome to Māori. It's our Turanga Wai. It's the place where I'm from, the place I belong, the place where my ancestors roam. Welcome to Māori. It's our Turanga Wai. It's the place where I'm from, the place I belong, the place where my ancestors roam. Yeah, ain't nothing like a poor feedy on the marae when you arrive to meet up with another tribe. The sun shining in your eyes, showing off the flies, waiting for the first speaker on the pie. Fire caught it all straight from the Mohio. Vital life lessons for Tama and Kōtiro, but one at a time. First Karamata will speak their minds, then the Manu Hiri will give their reply. No matter what the occasion, whether somebody's passed on or waiting or they're just aging. Marae is the staging. This is as formal as it gets. Show aroha and respect for each other. Don't forget a way I talk to your speech, brother. That's sweet cause we all know a little bit of kappa haka. Tribal roots run deeper than you can manage or even imagine. Tapu aspect can be damaged, yeah.
Listen directly from your ancestors. They're in your blood. They're in your bones. When you travel to a distant land, you're gonna take a piece of home that'll resonate deep in your soul.
Yeah, welcome to Māori. It's our Turanga Wai. It's the place where I'm from, where my ancestors roam. No matter if you come from near or far, we all know the kaupapa, where your roots are drawn to your whakapapa. You never fall for the future without your past, without the wairua. Vitupuna, Panupa, Hongi and Kihi, no mai haere mai to the whānau behind the scenes, mahi up in the whare kai. It comes as no surprise, Māori are multi-talented, keeping the balance between our art crafters and battlers. This ain't a place for staunch walks or faces forward arrogance. Amateurs is just a straight up embarrassment. The teko says it all to the average witness, for they knew we portraits of real savages. Blood of our ancestors runs deep within tribal marriages and kohanga reo to teach the kids what foundations of concrete. This where my speech begins. Māori stand again. This time we fight for keeps and win. Yeah.
Listen directly from your ancestors. They're in your blood. They're in your bones. Mountains will remain. When you travel to a distant land, you're gonna take a piece of home that'll resonate deep in your soul.
Yeah, welcome to Māori. It's our Turanga Wai. It's the place where I'm from, the place I belong, the place where my ancestors roam. Welcome to Māori. It's our Turanga Wai. It's the place where I'm from, the place I belong, the place where my ancestors roam.
Tara, 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 ke ti. E tai a te wheratika. O tātou e. O tātou e. Tara, 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 ke ti. E tai a te wheratika. O tātou e. O tātou e. Tara, 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 ke ti. E tai a te wheratika. O tātou katoa au e. O tātou e. Kai te nutu tōku pū. E pahawa i a koe. E ahuru mai ai. E ahuru mai ai. Kai te nutu tōku pū. E pahawa i a koe. E ahuru mai ai. E ahuru mai ai. Oh, ai. Tara, 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 ke ti. E tai a te wheratika. O tātou e. O tātou e. Tara, 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 ke ti. E tai a te wheratika. O tātou katoa au e. O tātou e. Kai te nutu tōku pū. E pahawa i a koe. E ahuru mai ai. E ahuru mai ai. Kai te nutu tōku pū. E pahawa i a koe. E ahuru mai ai. E ahuru mai ai. Tara, 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 ke ti. E tai a te wheratika. O tātou e. O tātou e. Tara, 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 ke ti. E tai a te wheratika. O tātou katoa au e. O tātou e. Tara, 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 ke ti. E tai a te wheratika. Oh, ai. Oh, ai, oh, ai. Ai te o mai koe. E te tara ke ti. Ai te o mai koe. Ai te o mai koe. Tara, 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 ke ti. E tai a te wheratika. O tātou e. O tātou e. Tara, 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 ke ti. E tai a te wheratika. O tātou katoa au e. O tātou e. Tara, 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 ke ti. E tai a te wheratika. Tuki tuki te manawa. Rere ana ngā mahara. E rongo ana te wairua. I tēnei mea e kia nei ko te aroha. E te witinga o te rā. Taku marama i te pō. I te rangi nei ho mai ki au he wāhanga. Kia koro wai te koe ki te aroha. Tō manawa ko tōku manapā. He manawa ka turuturua. Haere i te arara. O te aroha mauroa. Haere i te arara.
Witi me te waena.
Witi me te waina. Himene tia. Hitana waka oranga. Himene tia. Tana waka oranga. Kawhia ki te oranga. Witi me te waina. Witi me te waina.
Tēnā tātou e te whānau. Nau mai anō ki Ngā Tai O Tokerau. Ko whai wā tātou te mahi kaputi anō, me te hoki mai anō ki te kōrero. In our last break, we had a kōrero about strategy and the importance of having a strategy for our whānau who have stood in the Māori wards to mahi tahi. I want to talk briefly now, whānau, about voting, eh? So every week we've had a little segment where we've had a kōrero about voting. As we know, you have to be on the Māori roll to vote in Māori wards. Also, there was a time where we had the option to be on the Māori roll or not, and we had to say whether we wanted to be on either. And if you didn't say, then whānau were defaulted back to the general roll. So there are a lot of whānau out there that need to check and see, you know, make sure they're on the roll. If you didn't get anything in the mail, you have to make a special vote, ne? Can you talk a little bit about that, Clinton, what our whānau need to do to make a special vote? Do you know?
Can I steal Penney Taui's, because I was watching Penney Taui's thing the other day, and I thought I'm going to share that. Because e maramangi atu hoke, e te mea kaupapa.
That's it. Because yeah.
So, the kōrero, see, I think the late votes, you can actually go in on the day and you can ring in. But I think what Penney Tarei was saying was that just keep ringing. Keep ringing and hohaing them to tell them when can I get the vote in. So, because what I understand is it's too late to put the postal votes out, but you can still put a special vote in.
Yeah.
And it's the special votes that are going to be really important for our families, that once they pick up, that change is going to come, that they've got an opportunity to be a part of that change.
Kia ora.
So I know, you want to...
yeah, so...
0800 880 899, so that's 0800 880 899. So whānau, just phone that number. That's the easiest thing for me to do, just phone a number, and then get them to suss out your special vote. And it's really important for everybody. You've had 18 people stand up for you, and now it's your turn to stand up for them.
Kia ora.
And say, you know what, we're gonna make decisions in this rohe for once.
Yeah,
tēnā koe.
And you can, I think the other thing that Penney Tau'i said, oh, here I'm sharing his kōrero, thank you, brother, is that you can go to any of the districts in Kerikeri, I think Kaitaia and Kaikohe, and you can put a vote in there.
That's it, whānau. What it is that now you have to make a special vote. It's too late to post things back now to get it in time. So the only way to make a vote, if you haven't done it or you're not sure about your status on the roll, is to go into the council buildings, in either at the Te Ahu Centre in Kaitaia, in Kaikohe, or over in Kerikeri. And you need to have some ID. So, kia kahara tātou e te whānau. I know that's a scary place, you know. I'll be leaving my dog at home so no one can see his collar. And, you know, a lot of the time we go to those places and, you know, it's for humbug things. And our whānau don't often feel comfortable there, you know. But kia kahara, You know, it might take some time, make enough time, don't rush in there with not enough time, make time to go in and as you said, Reina, our whānau have stood up for us and it's time for us to stand up for them and for ourselves. Let's make sure that we have fair representation at that decision-making table because we've got 51% of us living here. Me ngā whakapapa katoa. Me ngā whakapapa katoa. Kia ora whānau. We're back. We had a bit of a technical issue with Reina's mic, so we're going to ask you to do her infomercial thing again with her.
Sure. So it's 0800 0800 880 899. Sorry, funny whānau. But seriously, whānau, 0800 880 899. Just give them a call and they'll give you all the answers in regards to voting. Kia ora.
Do it, it's worth it.
Kia ora. E Tarei, kei reira koe? Are you there, e hoa?
Oh yeah, I can barely hear you guys, but I kind of just picked up. I'm doing a lot of lip reading at the moment. But what I heard Clinton and our whaia say is vote for Patuwairua. No, that's I set up a page. I think there's been a lot of and it can be quite a confusing thing to go and vote and how it works. And you know, and I know that we've missed the cutoff date in terms of sending them away. And yes, you can make that special vote at Te Ahu and Kaitai, and you can make the special votes in the Kaikohe branch and also the Kirikiri office. But I've set up on my page, you know, the luxury of having a daughter that knows that's au fait in the social media and technology. So she's been my sort of a campaign manager and managing the page. But I just think it's important, and more than anything, the hardest thing now is to just get people to understand how the voting works. So I'll be hammering my page shortly to all of those that are supporting myself on council is what does that look like? How do I vote? What does it mean when I vote 1, 2, 3, and 4? If I vote 2, 3, or 4, is it a wasted vote? So there's got to be some type of education for our people around that. But I think if you take another step back, I think the hardest thing is to try and motivate our people to actually vote. And I think every candidate will have their strategy on how they will do it, because I know each and every one of us will probably have 500 mates, 600 mates, and if you got them all to vote, you'd be across the table. But unfortunately, probably only 150 or so, or 200 of them will be on the Māori roll. So it's about getting those 200 across the board to vote for you and strategically place their vote. I've asked for the first vote, and looking at how that system works, the next part of my page, I'll be putting up, well, what does it look like when you vote your first vote? And how do the votes get passed on if that person, or if the person gets enough vote just to get across the table? If you do a quick calculation, I would think possibly out of the 26,000 or so of our people on the Māori roll, I'm doing the laws of probability, you might get 7,000 or 8,000, possibly, and that's being generous. That's being really generous. I would say it's likely to be around 5,000 people voting. You break that down into the 18 candidates, you know, and then you have your, let's say it's, if you can get 600, you might get across the table. If another person gets 600, they're across the table. It's a sort of a percentage thing, and it's got to be your first vote that really counts. So it's important for our whānau, if you are going to make that vote, you need to make your first vote count. If anything after that, if it's spread right across the board and for some miracle we all evenly got 300, 400 votes each across 18, well then the second vote will definitely come in handy. So it's really, for me, it's important that you make your first vote count on who you want to be there, your first preference. Also make your second vote count as well. because if anything, it's going to be your fallback. But yeah, a lot of it's based around the first vote from my understanding. And I spent a few hours, and I'm a pretty educated man trying to learn that system. I couldn't even get my head around it the first 2 times I looked at it. And I've had some good discussions with Hilda and how that looks and what that looks like. So yeah, get your people out to vote. Use your networks that you've got. I'm saying this for all of us, not just myself, but for all of the candidates on the table, because we're all winners in this. And I think one of the best things now currently, as I know old-fashioned, is chuck your billboards up everywhere. Put your ads in the paper. But you know, our Māoris are so au fait with IT and internet and social media and currently, you know, a push of a button and we can reach 15 to 20,000 people just with a push of a button. We've stepped up in how we communicate. Everybody has a cell phone. Everybody has a Facebook app. Everybody has a Snapchat, the young ones that is, and Instagram. They have those 3 avenues that we can use to really push our cause and push our kaupapa out there. And, you know, I've got a couple of my old raukura from Te Rangi a Niwaniwa that are doing my sort of stuff for me. They says, Paps, what can we do? So they says, oh, well, you're more au fait in that Instagram and Snapchat than I am. And my girl, she's really au fait with Facebook. I says, look, we're pushing it out there soon. Get your friends, get their nannies, get their mums and dads, get their uncles and drag them up to the voting places and submit their special votes. Because that's how you're going to get across the board. And really place your vote. I'm stressing this to everybody. Strategically place your vote. And we know from the 18 candidates, whether I'm in, whether I'm not in, the people that will get there will deserve to be there. And we need those people there so that they can push the kaupapa as Clinton and as our fire there said earlier. We need those people there to support. If we can have across all of the different community boards, across all those other things, the 4 Māori wards will have the strongest Māori hearts. Those people going for those seats will have the strongest Māori hearts. They're the ones that are going to challenge. They're the ones that are going to push. And the other ones will be motivated by those 4 people there, because they're the ones that are going there because they're in the Māori ward. So, you know, they're fighting for things Māori because that's why we're there. So all of our other Māori that are going on in community wards, they'll be inspired by that because those 4 people on that board, their job is to push and to try and make change or make it better understanding for our people out there. So, ka taku kōrero tēnā. Kia ora tātou.
Man, some really good points made there, e hoa, tēnā koe. So, should we be mobilising as whānau, you know? Like if our local rugby league or netball team has got a van, you know, should we be having meeting points and everybody rock off to the council together? And, you know, it's really neat, those points that he made about being responsible for each other as whānau to make sure we have a voice, ne?
Yeah, I think we need to change our approach, actually, in terms of how we encourage our whānau to vote. See, I always reckon that when we got our 18 together, for the next hui coming along, we were discussing it, for the next hui, everyone that wishes to stand, right, we should get everyone together, and everyone in the far north that's in our district, or the hapu and whānau should get together and nominate. These are the 4 that we want to stand. So when the election comes, we're not, hey, there's our 4. And then we know that those 4, the 25,000 people that support our 4 ward members, and we put a Māori, the people on the Pākehā roll are at a disadvantage now, because if we've got a Māori mayor that's standing in the Māori roll, they've got 25,000 people that can vote for them where the Pākehās can't outnumber them. Right? So we utilise our 18 seats, or we utilise the Māori ward to guarantee who our mayor is. We've got the time and space now to educate our families for the next elections that we should be meeting and saying, right, who are the 4 people we're going to elect in the far north, so that we don't have to go through this big process of billboards, big processes of all these things, when we know that we've already decided these are the 4 best people that can represent us. And then those 4 people and the people in the Māori ward select the mayor that will support our kaupapa. And so we start utilising our numbers and our strategies, and we empower our families early to say this is the difference that we can make. And it's the low-hanging fruits. Once we see more brown faces in the council, once people start coming in and the āhua of the buildings have changed because the wairua of the whole system has changed because of our tupunas are backing us, our whānau are backing us, and even nothing like our own whānau to hold us accountable. Hey, we put you in there, you better do your job properly. So I think we're in a really, let's give us some time. Let's say that within the next 3 years, we've met, we've learnt the system, and we know how we can utilise the system to our advantage.
Tēnā koe, tēnā koe. You know, like what that makes me think of too, as you explain that, is that it's koia tērā ko te hakatinanatanga o tō tātou tikanga, ne? That's validating our hapūtanga.
Yeah.
You know, and we've all observed and been part of advancing he hakaputanga. We've been to the he wakamine ngā hui over the years, and it feels like this is a great opportunity for us to be able to do that, to have a hapu voice in that space by doing it ourselves, ne? That's what he wakaputanga is all about. It's about our own authority to do it ourselves. And Reina, I know that your whānau, the Harris whānau, you know, tūturu Māori kai roto I tērā āhua, and earlier you said that you mentioned the sovereign state of Mangamuka, and I love that kōrero. I love that kōrero. So, you know, like, how can we best influence these spaces? Clinton just gave us an awesome overview. How can we start now to mobilise our whānau and our hapu?
We tackle it from all angles, right? I mean, I said, like with Auntie Margaret, my Auntie Mahuri, she's the pōtiki of my dad's 15 brothers and sisters. And, you know, I said to her, I'm feeling really sovereign right now, living here in Mangamuka. And because we never ceded sovereignty. We never ceded sovereignty. We are our own. We just need the resources to govern. I will always be tūturu to that. We don't have to, you know, but I also pay respect to Te Tiriti in regards to my tūpuna hohepa o Tēnei Pura who signed Te Tiriti. And on my mum's side and Motukraka, that was hua. So, you know, so like, we're already sovereign, and we need some action plan down there on the ground, you know, just in our communities. Yep. We also need to infiltrate the system that's already there, and that's why it's important for people to vote. Okay, so that's I like to tackle it at all levels. Kia ora.
Kia ora, tēnā koe, tēnā kaurua. Tarei, you talked about understanding the system. What does it mean? First, second, third, fourth. Kia koe, what are the top 4 things that are of a major concern, do you feel, to our whānau in this huge ward? It goes from Tuai to the Cape. Takes 3.5 hours in a car to drive from one end to the other. What are the top 4 things that you feel like our whānau want to see movement on, e hoa?
Okay, one of the, again, just listening and talking to whānau, and she brought it up earlier too, for Reina, is our roads are disgusting. They're terrible in the places where there's strong Māori communities. Like I was at Herekino a couple of weeks ago, and my friend says, you know, they pay, amongst the houses that are down this road, there might only be 8 or 9 houses. They pay $30,000 in rates over 2 years. And they said nothing in their road has improved. They still got potholes. Now, for me, I see disparity when I see the more sort of colourless communities. And they've got some really nice roads. They've got all the facilities. They've got the toilets. They've got the swings and all of the extras that they get for their kids. And then you go to areas like out, you start heading out west, and then you soon notice the difference in the rating. And I know with Reina and her kids, you know, that's a tough road to come through the back there. It's a really tough road. And then you head north, you head to other areas. Those are some pretty rugged roads. When you head off at up at Waitiki, those are some pretty rugged roads. And those kids travel nearly 2 to 3 hours every day in the morning. They got to get up at 5 and they got to try and get to school from Te Hāpō. You got those kids. But don't forget, we've got our Hokianga whānau out at Pangaru. We've got the south side of the Hokianga, we've got all of those whānaus there, and the roads are atrocious. So I know that's one thing that's really concerning for me. The other one too, being an avid member within rugby league up here in the north, is I hate seeing we're like the poor cousins, and you see our fields and our facilities, we don't really have much. But then you go to some other areas and you see some pretty flash fields and lighting. Lighting is a massive thing that we have a problem with, so that we can train at night and fill us facilities to be able to do that. It's far and few between. The other one too, which is coming to the fore more and more, is the whole three waters, and what does that look like, and where does that play a role within our Māori? Do we actually have a stake in that? I know that the government is swinging some weight in behind that to try and seize some type of autonomy over that space. But, you know, where I sit in a couple of meetings that I've been to, it's a great opportunity for iwi and Māori to get into that place and seize some opportunities in that place. And, you know, the council is where it's at in terms of assets and in terms of resources that can be used. And if our Māori sees that opportunity, some great places there that we can work in. And the one thing that really kind of hits home all the time is our housing. A lot of our whānau are moving home. For whatever reason, they're coming north, and they're all moving home in large numbers. I know up here in the north, it's sad when you see our kids are living in hotel rooms in those emergency housing, and there's still some kids, there's 10, 12, 13, 14 people to a household, and they're, you know, and they're living on top of one another, and it's not a nice thing to see that. And so it's about creating those, or looking at those processes which allow for our whānau to go back onto their land. Because that's the hardest thing as well. Where do I start? What do I do? What is the process? How do I go about that? How do I get some sort of autonomy, or I guess rangatiratanga over my land? You know, the things that we've been doing for years and years and years and years. How does that work? And those are the sort of areas I think that in council you can definitely be advantageous in terms of helping our whānau be better equipped in that space. Getting to learn those processes and knowing how they work, and then finding someone or creating an opportunity so that whānau can have those discussions. I know up in Te Aupōuri they had some sort of housing type of program run out of the north, and that was held up in Te Kau, and there's so many people attended, they want to do it again. You know, those little things, when they come home, well, how do I settle in my house? How do I get a house? Do I go into mini house for now? Some people are living, oh yeah, and some friends of mine, they're in a tent at the back of their parents' houses with 6 kids. You know, that's not what you want to hear, and that's not what you want to see, and our Māori people shouldn't be living in tents. So it's really disheartening when I hear about those things. So those 4 things for me, I'm only keeping it simple. I may not know all the answers, but I guarantee that the answers are there. What you have to do is you've got to work hard to find them. So those are my 4 main kaupapa.
Yeah, in regards to housing, I mean, that has just always been a passion of mine in regards to policy. I've been thinking about and talking to some mates about what we can do in regards to the rating policy, so that it could be more equitable. By that, what I mean is when you got $450 to rent a place in Kaitaia and you're renting off an investor that comes from out of town, that is not equitable to me. And so how can we adjust the rating system in order to ensure that houses are going for people with whānau with houses, we're not renting off an investor that's making money off this market. Sorry, I'm just like really, you know, passionate about that. But so there's avenues there, but there's also the thought of, in regards to whenua Māori, why should it even exist, any rules exist on whenua Māori? And the reason that is because we've only retained, you know, we've only been managed to retain a certain amount of whenua Māori. We don't need your rules. And I'll go back to this kōrero I had with Ricky Houghton, and he said, you know, I got people living in a, you know, they got a notice to fix for what a notice to fix is, and the council issues a notice to fix, or the MB, whoever issues a notice to fix on a property that's not up to building standard. But essentially, right, they're not going past the tent and say, oh, I'm going to give notice to fix it. They're not caring about that. But once you build something, then they're going to care about it? I don't think so. Get rid of notices to fix. If you're building, it's a human right to house yourself. If you are building and you need to house yourself, there's nothing to do. You should have nothing to do with it. I'm sorry, just my
Tēnā
my
koe.
angry kōrero.
Yeah, I think infrastructure is what we're talking about. It's what Papatare's talking about, Tuihine's talking about, our roads, the water. So that our infrastructure has fallen apart. And that's through a whole, 50, 60 years of neglect. And when you hear the current councillor say, oh, it's neglectful, then why haven't you done anything about it? And why are you allowing the systems to break down and degrade in such a state that the whole region's become impoverished? So it's we deal with our infrastructure, but we have to be quite cunning about it. We have to be quite resourceful. We have to be note that there's climate change going on, that we've got to reduce our demand on fossil fuels. We've got to find more clever ways of using less to create more. And so we're in this transition period where we're going to have to look at how we can utilise the resources we've got to benefit what we have today without stealing from the future generations. So sustainability is no longer sustainable. And so we're into conserving our energy, we're into conservation of our resources and how we can utilise that to better build our communities. Infrastructure is always going to be there. We should be looking, and I said this in my profile, we should be buddying up or developing relationships with universities, industries, businesses, latest technologies. So I'm doing work with University of Canterbury at the moment, and we're looking at modular homes and using, so I'm working with the dude that started Rocket Lab, Associate Professor Chris Hahn, and we're looking at opportunities. He's got this belief that the economic powerhouse of this country is the far north, and that once we address the infrastructure issues in the north, then we are going to lead the country and the provinces. So we've got people outside our areas that can see our value. The people inside our areas don't. They don't see the value of the people. They don't see the value of our community. Our conservation program, or our whole area, is worth $20 billion in the green dollar. Right? We're going to outdo Rotorua. We're going to outdo Queenstown. Right? They aren't allowing that growth to happen. Why? Because the majority of the land is Māori. So if we start building Māori, then we don't have a slum people that we can just keep feeding off, right? Because you need pohara people. You need people that are going to live in those terrible states while they live nicely in Kerikeri. My bro said to me, don't go to the meetings in Kerikeri, because when you stand up and say you're going to divert all the money from the east coast and send it over to the west, $35 million has been diverted from Hokianga to go over to the west coast where they don't need, to the east coast where they don't have potholes.
Kia ora.
Right? So the government and the local government and all the Pākehās, let's say it because they're the ones that have been running the kaupapa, have been lining their streets, lining their pockets at the expense of our people.
Kia ora.
My tupunani tānaha says, I am tired of you sucking the marrow out of the spines of my grandchildren. And that's what's got to stop. We've got the democratic numbers to change it. We've got a government that's willing to move into a space called co-governance, whether we like it or not, and whether it's tika or not. We've got this movement that's highlighting or indicating change has come, and change is coming, whether you like it or not. We motivate our people to vote in the north. There is nothing that any government can do, right, that can stop us from implementing the changes that we want. I firmly believe that.
Tēnā koe hoa. That's a perfect time to go to a waiata, have a short break, and then we'll come back for our last segment. Tēnā tātou. Ai anō. Well, that was really interesting kōrero in that last segment. You were just talking, Reina, about housing and you were just talking about a policy in the break around housing that I think is really interesting in terms of whānau in other coastal areas being able to access budget if climate change affects us.
Now, climate change is here.
Yeah.
So essentially, there needs to be two policy strategies in regards to climate change. And that is, you need an adaptation policy and budget associated with it. And there's already a Climate Change Commission in New Zealand, right? And so you need money to adapt to what's happening. But you also need money. So, for example, what about managed retreat? With all the... We can look at it like we've got to look on these sites that is showing the flood, and as Māori, we've got our mātauranga Māori, we can see where it floods, right? We know where it's going to hit. So we've got to think about, if there's budget available from central government or if it comes down to local government, then Māori need to have priority resource to that budget. And the reason is because we're going to bear the brunt of it. It is Indigenous communities throughout the world that bear the brunt of these climate change that we're not really responsible for. And that's what I'd like to say, that we need priority budget for Māori in regards to adaptation policy, and also in regards to any policy to do with climate change, any policy to do with three waters. Priority budget for Māori communities.
Tēnā koe. Reina talked about three waters, and so did Tarei in his last kōrero. Three waters did come up as well around the time that the SNA kaupapa was mobilising our whānau to have a voice. How much influence do you feel like we should have or can have in that space?
All influence, and everywhere, is the final answer to that. Every single aspect that's to deal with a piece of grain of dirt or a bit of oxygen in this place called Aotearoa, New Zealand, first and foremost, tangata whenua have the first thing.
Kia ora.
So, it's an interesting thing, because it's almost like they let the system be degraded to such a point that we're desperate for help. Right? Because what's happening in Hokianga, right? Crap just goes all the way out. Waitangi, there's a sneaky stuff going in there. Waitangi, where sewage is just going out, nobody knows about it. So the infrastructure stuff, the three waters stuff, is vital to our well-being. Water is vital to us, and the infrastructure that's associated with it. I'll never be a proponent of centralisation. When the Red Revolution happened in '87, and we had 40,000 Māoris that lost their jobs because everything got privatised in terms of the post office, and my papa in the 50 years working for the railways, many of our people got knocked off, got centralised, sold off. Right? And we've never seen those assets come back into the people's hands. So centralisation hasn't been a very good thing for us as Māori. In the same vein, we need money in terms to upgrade our structures and stuff like that. The overall kaitiakitanga, tino rangatiratanga over any of our resources, first and foremost, tangata whenua. And everyone else from that, councils, government, should be working for us, not against us. I think that it's a good thing, in an essence, that we're getting our infrastructure redone. I think it's a terrible thing that the government are doing it in a way that they have the opportunity to create businesses out of our water and then centralise what they said they would never do, and that's sell our water.
Tēnā koe.
We've got a water shortage.
Kia ora.
Look at China. The Yangtze River, one of the biggest rivers in the world, dry as.
Kia ora.
They're going to want 1 billion people want water. So there's the infrastructure issues that Tarei and Whai was talking about, the three waters, they're all vital times for us to stand up and say, as tangata whenua, we have the ultimate say.
Tēnā koe.
And I know it's rhetoric, it sounds like rhetoric because we say it all the time, but we're in a position now that we've got numbers, we've got the intellect, we've got the capacity of us, of a people that have been exposed to 180 years of colonisation, and at the utmost kino that they could do it, they couldn't even kill us, they can't kill us. Right? They've tried their darndest. They try to kill our reo, they try to kill our tikanga, they try to kill everything about us, break us up as whānau and hapu, but we're the land. We're the people of the land. You can't do that to us. So we will always outlive the evil thoughts of those that are coming in, right? Because we're still here. Right? And there's a million of us. There's 888,000 Māori in New Zealand, 140 that live in Australia. Worldwide, there's 1.3 million Māori. We've never ever had those numbers. We've got the capacity within ourselves to take over the country. And that's what we should be really looking at. I mean, a lot of the stuff that Tarei and Whai's talking about and that we're talking about is the localised stuff. Well, it's the localised stuff that makes a difference to our people.
Yeah.
Kia ora.
And if we strengthen our local people, if we use global technology to strengthen our local solutions, us at the helm, change is inevitable. And it'll be a change that people, after a while, will begin to celebrate. And I'm talking about the people in Kirikiri, and I'm talking about the people that have no conscience whatsoever about tangata whenua, about te tiriti, and about the wakaputanga.
Tēnā koe. Pira noi te kōrero a apira na ngata ngene, mahia te rākau a te Pākehā hei painga mo te katoa.
Yeah.
Ai. And we certainly have the whakapapa and the tikanga and the skills, you know, at the table with the people that have applied to get that done. E Tarei, e hoki ana kia koe hoa. We just heard Clinton talk about the Three Waters kaupapa. At a very simple level, I was having a kōrero with one of my whanaunga and they said, oh, you know, this Three Waters thing, that means that they can have a water inspector to come on to my whenua, where I live as tangata whenua, and go down to my river and do a water quality test and then tell me how I can use my own way on my own whenua. And I'm not saying that that's correct or incorrect, but there's that perception generally among our whānau, because, you know, if you take the time to learn about this sort of stuff, then you do. But everyone's on survival mode, eh? Like, there are so many of these issues, Three Waters, the climate change kaupapa, how we can mobilise. Can you explain from your involvement and the hui that you've been going to, how our whānau can position ourselves best in terms of that kaupapa three?
Yep, I think really we've got to embrace that whole concept of the Tai O, because, you know, with the waters we've got our wind energy. With wind energy, we've also got our solar energy. Those three things are pretty, they're important for our Māori people. But currently, when we look at our situation every summer, we're running out of water all over the place. People are struggling to get water. They have to get trucks out to their different marae, out to their different papakainga and fill up their water tanks. The house, you know, then you're on water restrictions. So there are some massive shortcomings in that space. And who sits at the cusp of all of that? The councils. They have the piping that gets the water to you. They have the facilities that's supposed to make sure you get the water. So you've got your wastewater, you've got your drinking water, you've got you've got that water underground. If you have a look and you drive north, you've got those avocado farms that are sucking massive amounts of water from the waterbed to source their farming community to make sure that there's some the growth of avocados. And, you know, I get annoyed at times when I see, you know, we've got all this land out there, which I'm going to go off water for a second. And then instead of having our Māori people on them, you've got cows and flipping sheep on them. The same thing with the water, you know. We want to drink water. We want to be able to access the water. And what is it feeding? It's feeding avocados. You know, where do those avocados go? We might get a small chunk change of avocados in New Zealand, but it's all shipped off overseas. What I did, I was lucky enough to kind of sneak into a hui and listen to the different iwi talk about the opportunities. So they're collaborating now, the different places. You've got Ngāti Whātua, we've got our whāngarei, and you've got our Te Huku lot that are collaborating now to get into that space and get ahead of where they're at with the Three Waters. What I do know is there's $65 million sitting in council money in a bank somewhere that our Māori can access and utilise to make sure that we can better our infrastructure around water. So there's an opportunity there. But the problem is the council sit at the decision-making process. And unless our Māori ward people are there to initiate or instigate or manipulate that decision so it benefits our Māori, nothing's going to change. Iwi can voice as much as they can, but they've got to be at the table, inside that table. Whether it's a Māori wards, whether it's an iwi voice, They have to be at their table to make some change. So $65 million up here, another $65 million sitting down in Whangarei, another amount sitting in Auckland. Because you've got to see, that water's got to go over Māori land. Those pipes have got to go over Māori land. That water's got to come from somewhere. The water that's been dammed up in Auckland, that's all Māori land. So, you know, we have a big stakeholding in that space of water. And I know we're kind of running short, but you know, yesterday I just got back from, I'm going to go off here, sorry, fire, or off the water. I got back from Kapaka yesterday, and you know, we're in a world where we rush. It was nice to be reminded when we left that the Hokanga, we were jumping in our bus, ready to get out of there and come home because we were missing home. And the Hokanga came out there and they sang for us, they mihi to us, and it was nice to actually take a breath and have a breather and just, you know, take that time to just take in what we have. We have a beautiful culture, and we can rush every day. We can try and answer the problems out there in the world, or we can just take a step back and look at what we got. And for what I see, we have a great opportunity for us to work in that space and collaborate in that space of water. I'm even to the degree, it'd be nice if we actually had our 18, like Clinton said earlier, to have the courage amongst us 18 candidates and say, look, man, I actually think you do a great job in there. I'd step aside if there was 4 people out of all of us 18 that would say, look, we all agree, you 4 should be us. I think you 4 would be the greatest voice for all of our Māoridom. You know, because we're not here to kind of benefit ourselves. We're here because people thought we could do better for them. But I think if we can see amongst ourselves that there's actually 4 people amongst all of us that will do a great job, then you know for a fact they're not there because of their own reasons. They're there for the reasons of every other people here. So I kind of wanted to finish with, I know this is the last of it, but you know, we are in a place where we can make those decisions, and we just need to be courageous on how we make those decisions. Because ultimately we're all here for the same kaupapa. We believe in ourselves, we believe in the kaupapa, we believe in rangatiratanga, because that's what we're trying to get, is to have some sort of control. Atu i tērā. Hori kautaki koro i ānei, nō reira, mihi ana kia koutou. O koutou ngā whānau i o tautoko FM. Ngā mihi.
Tēnā kaupapa.
Kia ora.
Ai, pai ngā kōrero, pai katoa. Every week I learn something new. Every week I'm excited by the calibre of our whānau that have stood. And just like Tarei was saying, you know, and you as well, Clinton, well, all of you this morning have talked about strategizing and have talked about how we can best mahi tahi. But I'd just like to thank you both for coming into the studio, and thank you also to Tarei for joining from on Zoom. Any final words e hoa to our whānau who are still there on Facebook?
We're descendants of the greatest navigators, right? Now, even the Americans and the whole world, everyone's saying how great Māori people are, our navigators. So we have the skills and the capacity within ourselves to navigate this kaupapa that we're coming through now. And we just need to rely on and trust ourselves and trust the people that we put in place to do the mahi that they've been asked to do.
Yeah.
And we all work with each other. We just don't put them there and leave them the responsibility, like I said in Ngā Tai O. You vote us in, I expect you to support us in any way that we need to help so that we can serve you and our communities the best way that suits the communities. Mm. And so it's not just vote us in and then leave us, it's vote us in, hold us accountable, come to the meetings and support us in the needs of our communities. Mm. It's a two-way thing.
Tēnā koe. A koe, Reina, any kōrero to our whānau?
Yeah, I'll mihi ate kia koe i te whanaunga Clinton, me kia koe ki te mahita o, you know, o a tātou tamariki. Kia ora. I'm just really encouraging people to vote. If you don't have any gas, then just holler at me and then I'll get you to where you need to go in order to vote. Like I said before, we have come in full force for Ngā Tai O Tokerau, and we've come in and said, you know what, we're going to take this opportunity and we're going to go for it, and we're going to be in that space. And there's 18 of us. We're here for you, so you be here for us and just take over the rohe by putting your vote in. Kia ora.
Oh, tēnā koe, pai katoa ngā kōrero. Well, from us here at Tautoko FM e te whānau, ngā mihi kia koutou, ngā mihi kia koutou hoki ko noho mai I tōku taha I te ata nei. Local people, local kōrero, local votes whānau. Kia kahara, get out there to those council buildings and put your special vote in. Kia ora rā. Kia ora.